Welcome to episode four of Man Land. Myself again, Michael Windsor with Corey Babstock here. And today we're going to talk about something that is probably my favorite thing to shoot, my happy place, and that is taking pictures of humpback whales. Because it's one of the coolest things about Newfoundland and Labrador is we have all these whales visiting us here. So what do you think, Corey? What do you think about the whales?
Absolutely. It's when they're good, and this past season was really good. You know, it's like one of my favorite things to photograph. It's just, I don't think anybody really appreciates just how big they are. And you know, that's one of the things I enjoy with bringing visitors to photograph whales. Just the size of them and how close we actually get to them. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about how close we do get coming up. But yeah, I mean, when I started shooting whales, I used to just go down and stand on the cliffs and shoot them from shore. I didn't take Zodiac course before. And, you know, the big thing for me now shooting whales, there's no going back. Once you've been in a boat and on the water with them, shooting them from shore, while we still have the possibility to do that, not the same.
Okay. Oh, yeah, for sure. Actually, there's a number of ways to photograph the whales from shore. Certain places in the province you can go, and sometimes you're there long enough, you can get pictures of them breaching. But I find you can also take like the bigger boats, the more of the tourist kind of boats where there's a lot of people on there and there's kind of slow moving.
Right.
You still get, really good well pictures. But again, that's more about the whole good time of singing songs and someone getting screeched in or whatever, right? And, you see some whales, but then you don't have so much time. But of course, if you're a photographer or whatever, or if you really want to spend more time with the whales, then yeah, the Zodiac we always recommend.
Well, absolutely. It's just so responsive. Like if you see a whale, and one thing I want to be clear is we don't chase the whales. Like there's none of this pestering the whales or anything like that. It's just if you see a whale, you can get to it a lot quicker in a Zodiac than you could in a boat. By the time you get turned around in some of those bigger boats where you see a tail behind you, the whale's moved off. But in the Zodiac, you see a tail behind you real quick to get back there and get close enough for a good photo without pestering the whale at all.
So absolutely, like I said, we keep our distance and we have our big zoom lens, so we can still get those nice pictures that looks close, but really we're still far away. The other thing is too, like you just said, when it comes to the big boats, is that if you got a whale on a big boat that breaches from quite a distance, the time you get there, chances are the breaching has stopped, unless it's really, really active.
The other thing about the whales and how close you get to them in Zodiac is we can control what we do, but we can't control what the whales do. Sometimes the whales are every bit as curious about us as we are about them, and they'll come quite close to us while we're stopped taking photos of them. And, it's a whole different world when you've got a whale about 10 feet away from you, which happens from time to time. Not because we got that close, but because they came in and checked us out. It's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really fortunate that way because I love photographing whales. So I spend a lot of time, even before doing tours, I spent most of my time right on the water, looking for whales and things. And I had a lot of great encounters with them. Because one time I was out in Zodiac and we went out in this little cove and those calm and those 2 or 3 whales there. So we turned the engine off on the Zodiac and we just kind of sat there. And the whales are very curious sometimes.
Right.
This went for just actual time. So the whale, there's 3 of them there actually. And they were swimming around the boat, and they had their fin up. You could see the fin coming around the boat, and I was in the back at the time. And I looked in front ahead, and I looked, and I thought there was someone standing on the in the water because he came like he did the spy hop, where he comes right up and looks at you, and then he kind of slowly back down in the water. So man. But the one thing that blows my mind, they're massive, animals. They're probably 100 or 75 ton or whatever it is, and they'll go around the boat and around the boat, under the boat.
Yep.
3 or 4 times bigger than the boat Zodiac itself, but they never touch the boat.
Nope.
They're so aware of their surroundings, it blows my mind.
It's so fast too. Like one experience this past summer, we were in Zodiac and the whales were on the left-hand side of the boat, and it dove and it did this. You can kind of tell when they're about to dive because they'll show tail and do that big arch. We were all waiting for him to come back up on that side of the boat, and he came up on the right-hand side. Nobody was looking. We just heard it sound and turned around. And he was like about 10 feet away. The big fin just out of the water next to us. So everybody, almost a man went overboard. He jumped. Oh my! Didn't think he'd get that close. They're amazing.
It scares you sometimes. You just kind of wait and they'll come up and the big blow.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, and it's just like right next to you. And you're so like small and insignificant because, the Zodiac is still probably 19 feet. But the humpback whale, the fin on some of the big massive whales is almost that long.
Oh, yeah.
And come right next to you, and it's like, and you understand that they don't, of course, but just one flick of their tail, and the Zodiac could be flying.
One thing I really like about humpbacks, and I like shooting all the whales, but the humpbacks, they're just so playful. Like they'll put on the biggest kind of show and stay putting on the biggest kind of show for the longest time. This past summer, we had some luck seeing them, but mostly just, fins and no big breaches, no big tail action. We were on our way back into the harbor, and just outside the harbor, there was a whale there it rolled over on his back and was slapping his tail that way. And it must have slapped his tail a good 30 or 40 times and thunder cracks. Every time it hit the water, it was like, and then he just moved off a little bit and he started doing rolls where his, the side fins were just rolling around. He put a half hour, 40 minutes. Amazing. Now he didn't breach, but he was doing everything but. It was really amazing. And so close that, I joke my guests all the time about how, we'll go out quite far if that's where the whales are, but they will come back and there's one like, 10, 20 feet offshore. They to the harbor. So it's really cool because you don't know when they're good. As good as it is to know where they are, you don't know where they're going to pop up.
And why comes to breaching? Breaching is something that I remember before I got my first breach, I was going out boat like so often trying to get a picture of a breach.
So maybe we should explain first what a breach is, because I don't think, not everybody would know what that means.
Yeah. So I guess I just go right back to the beginning of different photographs you can get. So there's a picture of a whale that's skimming on top of the water to their back. That's a picture of a whale. So then a lot of people likes the money shot, what they call is when he gets the tail, when they does their deep dive and goes down and their tail comes up and you get the water dropping off the whale tail, which is pretty cool. So another one, like you just said then, is the fin when he flaps it on the water and bangs it. That's pretty cool. And then they do a head lob sometimes where they just go up with just their head and just slap their head on the water. So they're kind of like just for the water. And then this thing, like I said before, there's a thing that does a spy hop, where if they're very curious, they'll come over and they'll like slowly come up out of the water. And you can see them. I got a picture, and you can actually see their eye looking at you. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Coolest shot, where the hardest shot to get is a breach. And that's when you come right out of the water. And the jump.
Now that's what's amazing. Like you see that kind of tonnage coming completely out of the water. It blows your mind. Like it seems effortless. It's crazy.
They say it's just like two flicks of the tails and they're flying out of the water. Yeah. It gives me goosebumps every single time. Even though I saw so many pictures of it, it's one of those things that blows my mind. That's something that's so big and it's like Michael Jordan going through the air.
Yeah, and you get good operators, and we deal with a lot of good operators, and we'll talk more about that at some other point, I know, but they can almost read to a point if a whale's going to breach or not. I've been in that situation where the operator's kind of like, he's going to come up, he's going to come up, he's going to come up. And, some more often than not, it does, but I'll never forget this. Again, this past summer I don't know what you felt about this summer, Michael, but this past summer was an amazing summer for whales. It was just incredible. Mm-hmm. We were following a mother and a young calf, and I should say young calf, but the calf looked almost as big as the mother, really. But they were playing with us, doing some little tails, like showing the side fin and that. We thought they were going to breach, and they didn't, and we didn't. And finally, we said we're going to move on because it looked like they weren't going to do anything. And Zodiac, we had just started the turn, and two of them came out of the water at the same time, full body, double breach. And I was shooting with my 24-105 on the camera, And I'll never forget, I had it at full extension, but I didn't even spin the dial to bring it back down to 24. I hit the lens to bring it right back down so I could get as wide as I could. And I just did a burst shot, and I was lucky enough that I got both of them in the same frame. But it was probably one of the most exciting times I ever had on Zodiac. It was amazing to see both of them come out of the water at the same time. And of course, in our operator and say, yeah, I saw 4 come out at once. There's no matter when you get, there's always something you get something better, right?
Yeah, I saw that shot, and that's cool. And like I said, I do have a lot of pictures of breaches, but I still don't have a double breach.
Yeah.
Because
well, you saw a photo. Maybe we can put that one up on the YouTube video too if I send it
I've
over.
sent it up there for you as well.
Because they're both the exact same amount out of the water at the exact same time. It was like perfectly synchronized. It was so cool.
Sometimes when I'm out there, I try to zoom in as close as I can to get the full body of the whale.
Yes. Yeah.
But then sometimes if you get too close, you kind of cropped off a little part of the whale. So you're always wondering if there's 2 going to jump at one time or 1 going to jump at one time.
Well, that's what, like I've started taking, I used to take out my big zoom. I used to take one 50 to 600 or 70 to 200 into with me. And this past summer, I started taking these at 24 to 105 for whales. And I've gotten better whale photos this year with that lens than I've gotten with anything else. Because you do get that close sometimes that if you're out there with even 70, you're too close.
I do shoot at 100 to 500. I bring that one on one body, and I'll take the other one, like you said, the 24 to 105. So if it gets close and gets curious, then we shoot with that.
Learn how to capture the best images and develop your camera skills with workshops held in Newfoundland and Labrador's most inspiring natural landscapes. Newfoundland Photo Tours. Book your workshop today.
If you want the shot, you got to have the tools to get the shot. The good thing is, and this is kind of off topic, but it is photography, so it's already talk about it. Yeah. I found that as I get more and more used to what I want to shoot, my lens selection has narrowed, and I don't feel the need to have 7 different lenses in my bag. Like normally 2 or 3 lenses is all I need to encompass what I want to photograph. I think the trap you fall into, especially when you start, is every new lens you see, especially if you see somebody else shooting with it, you want that lens.
Yeah, that's what I find. I mean, like I said, the 100 to 500 for Indian telephoto, and if I'm doing a landscape, 24 to 105. And then there's some specialty things that you might use the 16 to 35 or something, but most of the time it's in that distance, really.
I got the 10 to 22 ultra wide that I use quite a bit for landscape, but that's completely situational. And I got that nifty 50 that I throw on for some stuff. I've gotten some really good puffing shots with a 50 millimeter when they're over close. Okay. But yeah, you don't need to lug around 10 tons of gear to get the shots. As long as you have a range.
Yeah, so there's another point too. When it comes to taking pictures of the whales and the Zodiac or whatever, you gotta remember that the Zodiac, you're not standing on land, so you're only swaying a little bit. So 2 things. One, if you got this big prime lens that's 500 and a whale breaches, it's going to be hard to get it in that viewfinder. Like almost, I wouldn't say impossible, but it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
The other thing too is if you got this big lens and you're holding it up the whole time, the shoulders and your arm is going to be falling off.
100%.
Well, the other thing that just popped in my head that I was going to say, I kind of forgot about, is that when you're photographing whales, to me, I always refers it to as kind of similar to, I don't know if you remember the game Whack-A-Mole. You don't know where they're going to pop up. The same, you're out there and you're kind of waiting, and all of a sudden one can jump behind you and there's a big splash. And other times you could be in front. But as you know, we go out with great tour operators. We go out and they know. And if we go to a place where the whales are very active, we kind of get used to their routine. And if you get one that's kind of jumping, you'll get one that jumps and they'll probably jump 4 or 5 times. So you'll kind of get which way he's moving, so you can kind of get really lined up to get that shot.
Well, that's one thing to do. Like, as you said, we do use really good operators, and what I really appreciate if it's a tail shot, some of the operators we use will try to orient the Zodiac so you could get that perfect back on tail shot. Like, they'll know he's going to come up and show tail, so they'll get the boat pointed the right way, so you don't have to try to get that shot, right? And that's that comes from years of experience and working with us. They know what we're looking for. So it's great.
That's like calling myself too now that I experience so many wells and like so often. There's 2 times that I know for sure that they'll breach. Is that if they sleep. So when wells sleep, they're basically shuts down half the brain and just kind of on the water, and they just kind of stay on top of the water and hover, and they don't do anything. So it's easy to see they'll still breathe, but they're just kind of just floating on top of the water, almost like, yeah, the dead man's float sort of thing. So then sometimes if they get disturbed, they'll wake up with a bang, and they'll do a couple of head flops and they'll go down. And I wouldn't say 100% of the time, but if that happens, chances are get ready because he's coming.
He's coming up, yeah.
Out of the water.
Yeah. Got to get his morning stretch in, right? We were talking a lot about shooting from Zodiac too, but the nice thing about Newfoundland as well is that there's a lot of places where you can shoot them from the shore. St. Vincent's Beach, which is in one of the places that's just simply amazing for anywhere 20 Geet, Monte Vista, that area. We had some really intense activity this past summer. There was one area in Monte Vista we went, there was, I think we counted about 10 to 12 humpbacks just in that one bay. And of course, the capelin, we should mention that too. That's what the humpbacks are doing here in the first place, is gorging themselves on this little fish called a capelin. Same thing the puffins after. Everybody wants a capelin. And they were just, one thing we didn't talk about, we were talking about different things they do, is the side lunge when they'll come up with their mouth open and just kind of skim everything that's on the surface. And you can actually see the fish jumping in their open mouths. We were seeing that, it was just an amazing trip, amazing experience. Just from the shore around Bonavista. Vista. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you do the lunge feeding, that's the other thing that they do to cool take a picture of. So when they come up with their mouth wide open, and like you said, the fish is just kind of jumping out of the mouth, and that's pretty cool.
If you ever watched the TV show Dune, there's like a sandworm coming out of the desert sands, only it's in the water. Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, so capelin, as I don't know if we've mentioned on the Puffin podcast, it's only it's a small silverfish, kind of like a sardine, but it's bigger. It's probably 2.5, 3 inches, and some of the male capelin could be up probably 4 inches. So that's why they all come here. So when the whales come here, they usually arrive the beginning of June when the capelin show up, and they feed the whole summer. They just come and they just eat and eat and eat. So when the whales come here, they put on 2 feet of blubber. So they're just eating continuously the whole time while they're here. And then they'll leave and go back down the Caribbean, and they don't eat no more until they come back next season.
So that's their route, right? Their cycle. They spend their winters down in the Caribbean and their summers up here.
In the warm water.
In the warm water, yeah. But yeah, they just gorge. Like it's when you think about how much biomass must be out there in the schools of capelin, that they're sustaining all the whales that are offshore and all the puffins, and they got to be, millions of metric tons of capelin out there every year.
Yeah, there's the dolphins and seals and gulls and
everything needs to capelin.
It's just incredible how much fish is actually out there.
So, Mike, I think we both agree humpbacks are probably our favorite thing to shoot, but is that the only whales we see in our bays? Yeah. So, any good experience with other types of whales?
So first, I guess a list of type of whales we usually see. So we get orcas come by. They're transient whales, so they don't hang around. They'll just kind of go around basically looking for minkies to eat. So humpbacks is the favorite one to photograph, and of course then there's the orcas, and there's the minke whales. They're a little smaller and they hang out by themselves.
Yeah, they're hard too. Like a humpback, not to interject too much, but a humpback will pretty much travel in a straight line. But a minke will dive and he could come up anywhere. There's no straight line for minkies.
Yeah. And then there's the fin whale, which is the second largest whale that's next to the blue whale. They're more streamlined, they're long and kind of narrow. So we get an issue of them. Actually saw an issue of them last summer. You don't see their tail very much for photographing. They're not deep divers.
They're a big whale, but they're boring to shoot. Really, because they pretty much show their top fin, and their spray is really cool because their spray goes really high. But they don't. You're right. They don't show a lot of tail or fins or anything like that.
Whereas the fin whale, when they blow, they go straight up as almost like a line. But when a humpback does it, it's more like a cloud, like a parachute comes up.
Big smelly cloud.
Just if you're downwind and
Yeah. We'll never be accused of having good breath.
But orcas, I had one cool experience probably 3 years ago or 4 years now. I can't remember exactly. I think it's 4 years. That I was actually taking pictures of bald eagles, and I said, "You ever see any orcas? Make sure you give us a call." So that same morning, he called and said, "There's orcas." This time, oh my God! So I phoned my other buddy, Bob. He's with Discovery Sea Adventures, and I told him that he could come down. So two of us went out there. It was actually on my birthday, which was like my favorite birthday I ever had. So we went out there, and it was 4 hours with the orcas.
What?
But it's some hard to photograph because they're dolphins, right? Really, what they are.
Yeah.
They're so quick. So I think I shot probably 100 gigabytes of pictures, and probably only got 6 or 7.
So it's still something I got to tick off of my bucket list, but to see them would be an amazing experience.
And they're so fast too. Like they could be in the area and you don't even know they're there. And that time we were out there for 4 hours. Like they were playing around the boat and we had all kinds of time with them. But when they decided that was enough and they wanted to leave, they were just gone.
Yeah, really cool. My big thing was to get a full breach because I had lots of partial breaches before, but I didn't have full breach till this summer, and I got blessed with that double one as well as a couple of full ones, which was amazing. But an orca is 100% high on my must-get bucket list. One thing that I did this past summer, though, that was something I've not seen before. Right at the end of the season, we got to spend a trip with the sperm whales. And that was quite a trip because we did, I think it was 20 or 25 kilometers in the Zodiac one way to get to where they were hanging out. And we were very lucky when we got there. There was about a dozen of them. And they were quite active. No breaches, but they were doing head bobs and tails and all that. And spent a couple hours there with them.
Yeah, because now that you bring it up, like I'd never ever or saw a sperm whale actually breaching. But there's another boat tour operator as well that's around that area. Chris with Sea of Whales. He actually got some pictures of breaching sperm whales this year.
I know.
And they're so non-aerodynamic.
The big flat-nosed transport truck.
There's another guy that comes here from Scotland every year. And he took a video of one coming towards the boat, like on top of the water. And it looked like a submarine. And see, like the water has it coming close.
What's really cool, too, is you can see their heads. They have a lot of scars from squid. Like the squid tentacles and suction scars. And so every time their head came out, it was just like a road map of scars all over the front of their head. Really cool. That was probably one of my favorite experiences because it was so different. If somebody had asked me 2 years ago if sperm whales were in Newfoundland, I would have said no. Not that I know of. But no, they're there. And there's a very deep crevice that goes up there in Trinity Bay, there by Tickle Cove, that area. Like it's quite deep, and that's where they're hanging out.
I went out there a couple of times, but I don't really have pictures of sperm whale. But I think this season I'm going to have to try to make a special trip out there to see if I get some pictures.
Yeah, that was, like I said, late in the season, and the operator we went out with was Bob at Discovery Tours, and that's not a normal trip for him. It was just there were no whales in Bonaventure Vista Bay at the time. The sperms had been sighted that morning by Chris, and that's the other really cool thing I like about out there. A lot of the operators communicate with each other, so if there's something going on, they share that, so they'll know to go there. And we went out, and sure enough, they were there. And then about half an hour into that trip, Chris showed up with his boatload of people, and they all got a show as well. It was really cool.
Anywhere in the water around Newfoundland and Labrador, you can see whales of all kinds.
Yeah, we had a lot with white-sided dolphins too, or white-beaked dolphins this past summer at Zodiac, and there was about 8 or 9 of them in the pod. And they spent about half an hour zooming along the Zodiac, just racing with us. That was really cool.
Just share one more story when it comes to breaching. I've been out in my history, most of my time in the summer if I can. I've been out in boat. If it was up to me, I'd just go out there and, probably mid-June, I come back in August. I just stayed the whole time in Zodiac. But one time I had a group of people with me and we was going out. And I always hear some stories about one time I went out there and they all jumped and the breaching, was breaching 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Like, yeah, whatever. This particular day we went out and I had 3 other people with me doing a tour, and it was kind of rough. And the operator wouldn't actually want to go out because it's kind of rough. But he saw those two whales just outside the Narrows or the harbor when he went out. So I said, "Well, go out and try it." So I went out there, and as soon as we got there, there was a mother and a calf, and the calf jumped, and it jumped for the full hour we were out there.
The calves are a work it.
It was just like it go down 1 minute probably, and up it goes again. And then the mom got into it, and the mom jumped probably 5-6 times. But my voice was gone from screaming. Oh my God.
You can help yourself, right? One of the last trips I had this past summer was that 9-day tour I had with that couple from the U.S. And she loved this. She was saying she loved the Zodiac. So, I gave her the option. I said, well, if there's room, we can go as many times as you want. I mean, it's your choice, right? Your ticket. And when we were in Bonavista Vista area, we went out 3 times in 3 days. And that was when we saw the double breach in Bonavista Vista was that done. The dolphins was with her. And we went out from Trinity and we saw the right whales and the stellar sea eagle. And I was like saying to her, I said, you kind of hit a home run with these 3 Zodiac trips, right? Everybody's going to expect this is what they're going to see every trip now. And that's just, not the case. And that's something I always try to make clear to guests, and I'm sure you do too. Nature is nature. We can put ourselves in the very best position. We know if they're there, we'll see them. But we can't promise. There's never a promise, right?
Oh, no. But like I said, the hardest thing is every time I go out there, I'll ask the guests, of course, like you would, to have a breach every single time. But breaching is the hardest. Like you get a whale tail pretty close, first to see the whale and then get a whale tail and stuff. But the breaching is the hardest. And sometimes I go out there and I forgot to come in. He still has a good trip, of course. Just being on the water is amazing.
Lots to see out there without the whales. I mean, the whales are a highlight, but there's no wasted trip in the Zodiac.
And just seeing the lighthouses and stuff from land is pretty cool as well.
The geology, and it's an amazing trip. But you're right about what you see. I was reviewing my files from this past summer, and you can tell when you go out at the beginning of the summer, you're just happy to see a whale. Because in one of my first trips, I must have about 100 exposures of just the back of a minke. No tails, the whole thing. You don't want it well, and then you take about 50 exposures of it and be happy enough. And by the end of the summer, you kind of get your camera down. And you're like, nah, I'm not taking a photo of that unless he comes out of the water.
Take a tour through this land's incredible vistas, wildlife, and your own creativity with an immersive guided photography tour. Get that perfect shot. Newfoundland Photo Tours. Book your tour today.
So camera settings, you got to think or remember that the whale jumping out of the water or they're flapping their fins. So it needs a really fast shutter speed. So when I go out there, I'll shoot probably like 1/4000 of a second. Now that's, of course, on a nice day where the light is good. Sometimes if you're out there during sunset and it gets a bit darker, of course, you got to play with it. But usually I try 3200 is probably the lowest because this way, every little drop of water that's flying through the air will be a razor sharp.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It's not just the whale you're capturing, it's the water as it comes up around them, and you do want the high shutter speed for that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you can bring your f-stop down as low as you can, and then your ISO, and then with the great denoise and all that stuff you have when it comes to noise in your image, you can take that out no problem.
Yeah, typically for shooting any wildlife is a high shutter speed because like obviously movement involved, you want to have that high shutter speed.
And the other thing too, for if you're shooting, say Canon, I have it on servo. It's a one shot. It's not one shot. They're moving, so the subject is going to be out of focus. And on Nikon is under continuous focus instead of just one shot. And I know they're saying on this Fuji and everyone, but basically you just got to have it so that your focus is actually continuously focusing.
Yeah, and that's true for not just whales, for shooting birds, or and again, standard wildlife settings basically, because stuff moves a lot. I was just out this morning shooting some ducks down the bay here in Clairvaux. And same thing, as they were swimming around, your focus was constantly shifting.
And as we say, shooting, we're actually photographing them.
Yeah, I'm photographing them this morning. Yeah. I know I say it out every time I say that, especially to anybody who's not a photographer. Sometimes I get looks, especially when I say shooting puffins. They're like, "You're shooting for puffins?" Yes. Yeah. So best times, Michael, to view whales. I find this summer was June, July. Seemed to be a really good time for the whales to be in, especially the humpbacks. Capelin. You're going to follow where the capelin are. So if you could figure out a time, if you could get a timer on a capelin to track them and know when they're going to be in the bay, that's the best time for a whale. But generally, June and July. And when it comes to time of day for shooting, I know we talked about when we talked about the puffins, how nice it was to get the early morning or later evening light. A little bit more difficult when we're in Zodiac, because Zodiac only runs at certain times. So, that you kind of have to go when they go. But the whales don't care. Whales don't care if it's sunrise, sunset, or middle of the day. If the capelin are on the go and they're active and they're feeding, time of day really doesn't come into it. But June and July, peak time to come to Newfoundland. You got your puffins, you got the whales, and there's good possibility you got icebergs. So that's the time.
Absolutely. When the wind is blowing or when the conditions is not right, just kind of get them moving. And it seems like they kind of jump more when the weather is not good. But of course, they jump all the time. Depends on the condition if they want to jump. Oh, and the other thing that people always ask, why do the whales breach? So there's a lot of theories about that. So one is helps them digest their food. One is when they jump, they slap like the parasites that's under the chin off the body. There's another couple ones. A partner when they're Caribbean, show their power. That's another reason. And some people just says because they're happy and they want to jump.
Play. For the young ones especially, it seems like just play, right?
Yeah, and learning and getting their strength and all that stuff.
Yeah.
For me, I says they jump because they can. Kind of like us. We jump. When we're happy, we jump for a different number of reasons, and they like to do it, and we love watching them.
Absolutely.
So that's our whale podcast for this week. I think next week now we're going to talk about the landscapes of Newfoundland and Labrador. We are just so blessed with the crazy seascapes and landscapes that we have here. It's a photographer's dream, I'd say. So next week we'll be back talking about the landscapes. And as we sign off here from the Rock, keep your eyes on the horizon and your heart in Newfoundland.
Till next week. Yeah.